Welcome to episode 72. Today we talk with James and Emily of Rethink the Rat Race, their purposeful lifestyle design, and just a handful of short term rentals, each bought for under $100,000 in an unsexy locale, can lead to a life like this.
What we do is we have a thing that we call GEO hacking, right? And so essentially, if we can rent our place out for $75 a night, but if we can find a place in Mexico for $50 a night, well, then it pays us to continue traveling. We shouldn't stay here. We make more money traveling than we would blocking off our own place and staying there.
Hey guys, welcome to Real Estate Maximalist. I'm your host, Alan Corey. I'm the author of 2 real estate books endorsed by Barbara Corcoran, one titled $1 Million by 30, and the other titled House Fire. I just went under contract on a 52-unit fixer-upper apartment building. I also lead a top-producing real estate agent team in Atlanta. I'm also in the process of turning one of my duplexes into 2 short-term rentals as we speak. And this is something I've been into since 2011 when I was part of a 4-person startup that actually got acquired by Airbnb when it was brand new. So all this to say, I live, breathe, and obsess over real estate, but it's usually just easier to say I'm a real estate maximalist. All right, Maxis, our guests, James and Emily today are killing it. They're inspiring. They've retired within 5 years of real estate investing. By the age of 28, they've mastered short-term rentals and utilize some of my favorite strategies, GEO hacking, which you heard in the intro, but they combine that with short shifting, where they have no permanent primary residence and shift between their vacant short-term rentals in a town that you might find surprising.
So we're in Huntsville, Alabama. We're kind of nomadic. So we snowbird in Florida or Mexico. We do a month or 2 in Europe during the year, but we're typically like our home base is in Huntsville.
The lifestyle you've created for yourself is basically you guys can travel on a whim wherever you want, and you're managing all your properties remotely. And all these properties are in Huntsville, Alabama, right?
Correct.
So people listening today probably are thinking, wow, Huntsville, Alabama is not a vacation destination for a lot of people. I thought Airbnbs are supposed to be on the beach or at a lake house or in the mountains, but you seem to be doing really well in sort of a mid-tier city in the South. Who's the clients renting your properties?
So there's all the engineering companies, Boeing, Lockheed, Blue Origin, like just literally all of the engineering firms. And then we have Redstone Arsenal, we have the FBI headquarters that just moved down here. I think Amazon has like a warehouse. There's just a lot of work here, and there's a lot of people because FBI. There's a lot of people moving down. Those people coming for work, but also people are building houses, and so in between their house getting sold and their house getting built, they need a place to stay. So there's a lot of people who are looking for short-term, month to 3-month rentals.
Okay, Maxis, I think this is very powerful information here. Emily and James are buying property in a smaller city, and their guests are locals and temporary workers coming to town. Competition is low for them as a short term rental provider because the big bucks are chasing the vacation homes. I get it. Vacation homes are sexy, and it's also nice to use it yourself, but it's not practical for everyone because usually it takes a big down payment. But Emily and James don't have vacation home budgets for their 10 home portfolio, which they bought each one for under $100,000. Have you turned all 10 of your properties into Airbnbs?
We still have 5 long term. And so right now we have 5 long term and 5 kind of short or medium term.
And the short and medium term, what's sort of the price range to buy a property in Huntsville?
Well, so we bought it's a little tough to say because what we did was we had a few long-term rentals that we converted into short-term rentals. So for instance, we bought a duplex for 50,000 and both sides of that will be Airbnbs. One side is an Airbnb currently. And so we got 2 units for 50 grand, so 25 grand a piece. But that's not necessarily replicable anymore. And so we bought a property earlier this year for 70 and we bought another one for 100 just like 3 weeks ago. And so they're still very affordable.
So you're saying an FBI agent, a engineer at Lockheed is staying in a $50,000 house and renting it from you guys.
Yes, yeah. And they're paying, 70, 80, $90 a night to do that. And that's mostly the medium term. We do still get like some people that are doing like staycations or not really staycations. We don't really get a lot of local guests, but For instance, we had somebody that came over from Atlanta for like their anniversary weekend, and we're close to a bunch of breweries and things like that. We have the Space and Rocket Center, which is actually the biggest tourist destination in Alabama, other than probably the beach. But because our spaces are all one bed, one bath, we don't typically get like a lot of families coming to space camp. So it'll be a mom dropping their kids off, and then she'll stay for the week while they're in space camp. And so we have that as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's a cool niche. And I think a lot of people think if I'm going to buy a vacation rental, it's got to be more expensive than my primary. It's got to be in a different state, a different city. And everything you're telling me is the exact opposite of that. You can make this work locally. And you being locally, you probably suss out the neighborhoods and find the good deals. And then you spend your life traveling the country. Is that because you wait to rent out your own primary as a short-term rental? And if that's the case, you move, or do you not have a primary? Like, what's your primary residence situation?
We don't really have a primary, but currently we are living in one of our properties while we're converting it to a short term. So we kind of bounce around, and it just depends. I guess it depends on the time of year and the situation, and if tenants have moved out or vice versa. But I think going from here, we will block off one of our short term rentals and stay there whenever we are in town.
Awesome. I call this strategy short shifting, where you're shifting between your short-term rentals, whatever one's vacant, right? That's the most lucrative strategy. Obviously, it helps to have some flexibility. I know it's tough if you have kids or pets or anything along those lines. If you've got that flexibility and you just have a go bag, you've got all these furnished houses, in town, just hop over to wherever you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the same train of thought, Alan, what we do is we have a thing that we call GEO Hacking, right? And so essentially, if we can rent our place out for $75 a night, but if we can find a place in Mexico for $50 a night, well, then it pays us to continue traveling. We shouldn't stay here. We make more money traveling than we would blocking off our own place and staying there.
Oh, that's genius. I love that. That's awesome. So what were some of the places that you've been able to travel to with this method?
So we've done months in Mexico. We've done months in mostly it's winters. We like to spend summer and fall and part of fall and spring in Alabama. It's just like the weather's nice. Our friends are available to do things, and so we try to stay not necessarily stay close to home because we'll go for a month to Europe in like May or October, and like we cap those on either end because it's like super nice over there as well. But yeah, so we've done Mexico, Florida. We did a month in Greece, bouncing around the Greek islands.
And how old are you guys now?
So I'm 31. Emily just
30.
turned 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you started investing at what age? 5 to 6 years, 10 properties, and these properties are $100,000 or less, and it's funding you to travel the world. It's very, very inspirational. So if someone's listening today, what do they do to get started? Like, where do they look? Maybe their hometown's too expensive. They live in a high cost of living city. What are they looking for specifically?
So one thing I do like, one bedroom, one bath places don't typically get that much competition, and particularly condos. A lot of people avoid condos because they don't want to deal with the HOAs, and there are headaches that come with it. But because of that, there's practically zero investor, out of state investor competition. And so if you can find a condo association that's easy to work with, which we have a couple that are, then those are like perfect. There's less competition. The cost of entry is so much lower. You don't have to deal with exterior maintenance. So it is a good way to get your foot in the door and really just learn how to manage people or manage your property. And you don't even have to have a property manager, or you don't have to manage it yourself. You can choose to have a property manager. We did for our first one because the one that we bought in Huntsville, we bought while we were on work assignment in St. Louis. So we were actually long distance investing for our first property, and it just happened to be where we knew. And so that's probably step number one. If you know a place that makes sense, like if you grew up somewhere or you have family somewhere or friends somewhere, that makes a lot more sense than just like picking a random spot on the map. But if you're going to pick a random spot on the map, you have to look at movement patterns. You have to look at industry. You have to see which cities are growing because you don't want to buy into a dying city. I think a lot of mid-sized cities across the Southeast and across the Rust Belt are great opportunities. They're not, a flashy name. Like I don't own any properties in New York or in Miami, but the properties that we own in Alabama pay for us to go to New York or Miami as much as we want.
So we've learned you can be successful in smaller towns. We've learned $50 to $100,000 homes can be good Airbnb rentals, we learned this sets one up to do short shifting or geohacking and live a nomadic lifestyle traveling the world. Now, it hasn't all been roses. James and Emily had a bit of a coronavirus lockdown issue, reducing their nomadic travels, and it forced them to pivot a bit on their co host situation, which is essentially outsourcing the property management of your short term rentals to someone else. They handle the bookings, the advertising, the logins on Airbnb. But in true James and Emily fashion, they turned lemons into lemonade.
The whole digital nomading, like bouncing around thing, wasn't as cool when you're locked down in one place.
Right.
And so if we were going to be locked down, we'd rather be here. And when we came back, we decided to forego our co-host because we realized that this was actually a passive income stream for her. And if it was that for her, then it could definitely be for us. And so at that point, we just kind of dove into Airbnb and focusing on optimizing systems and making sure that we had all the systems in place for us to continue traveling while also managing our Airbnbs and making sure that our guests are having a better stay. Like our reviews have skyrocketed since we took over the management compared to what our co-host was doing.
So, what are those systems?
So yeah, it's we have a few, right? So it's mostly about communication for the guests and expectations from the cleaners, and that's really mostly it. That's all it really takes. I know a lot of people like overthink what it needs to be. You need to have a smart lock to get people in and out. You need to have good Wi-Fi, and then from there, we choose to not use a property management software. We actually do it all using Airbnb's automated messaging, and we just add in the door codes and make it the last four digits of their phone number. And so it's super easy for the guests. And then we have essentially like a flow chart, like based on this, then this, and this, then this. And so we just work through that flow chart for every guest. And the cleaners come and they come on time. And that's actually the biggest part is just finding someone that you trust to do that. And so, we'll be in Europe for a month and we'll have, 10 turnovers in three different properties, and we just have to trust that the cleaner is doing their job and doing it well, and they are, so it's perfect, and we pay them for that.
So, what's your goal now? Are you actively trying to acquire more Airbnbs?
So we make enough money off of our properties that we can live very comfortably and for the minimal amount of headaches is what I should say.
Right. Yeah. It's lifestyle design. You've created, you don't need any more. You have all you need. You're fine. Are either one of you still working a day job?
How long have we been retired?
Just over 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years, 3 years of retirement. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's amazing. And your family thinks you're crazy and insane.
Pretty much.
Both. Yeah,
No, I went through that too. I house hacked and left my day job at 28. That's awesome. So the day to day, you have different roles, different responsibilities. I know you're retired, but there's obviously work that goes into managing these Airbnbs. Can you kind of shed light on someone who doesn't have an Airbnb? I know you got systems and automations, but how many hours a day? What are sort of the tasks that you're doing?
So we split it up in that I do the bookkeeping, tracking all the income and expenses and everything, and I've tried to make that as easy as possible to categorize. So I have a spreadsheet to keep track of receipts, and um, James handles all of the management and basically being like the customer service or that aspect of it. How much would you say that that's a week?
yeah. 15 to 30 minutes a week, maybe.
Yeah. For, sending messages and the door codes and stuff like that. I couldn't say about bookkeeping, but it's if I keep on top of it, it's probably, maybe an hour a week.
Yeah.
So the bookkeeping is just like business expenses, how much toilet paper you bought,
Right.
shampoo, things like that. Okay. And then the door codes can be changed remotely, and then you just
Mhm.
communicate that.
And we could automate that. That's the one thing that we currently have to do before a guest comes. So all the messages are automated and it tells them what their door code is and everything like that. So the one step that I have not taken myself out of yet for a booking is entering in the door code. So when we receive a booking, I don't have to worry about anything except for, well, there are two things I do. I schedule the cleaner, which I could probably automate that as well. And I schedule to add their door code. And those are the two things that I do. That takes me very little time per week.
Any software systems that you use or buy or subscribe to in order to kind of make your life easier?
The one thing that we do use is Price Labs. And so, for instance, we have a one night minimum booking. That one night has to be over $100. Otherwise, it's a 2 night minimum. And so that's like some of the functionality that's pretty cool. We can say, oh, okay, we know people are coming in for a concert because the demand is really high. so that we can capture a one night booking. But otherwise, we don't want, a Tuesday night or a, Friday night and someone block essentially a whole week of bookings for that. But we've decided it makes it worth their time if they're booking for at least a minimum of $100.
And Price Lab tells you to increase the price because they see the demand because of that concert or event.
Yeah, and it automates the entire process. So you essentially put in your parameters and say, like, based on 3 months out, we want the price to be 5% more or 10% more because people are planning and planners pay more. And or you can offer last minute discounts. So for instance, in the next 14 days, if any vacancy is available, it has a stepped discount. So it'll discount at 5%, then 10%, then down to whatever your base number is. So you can set the parameters of where you want the numbers to go.
Okay, awesome. And how much does that cost?
So I'm pretty sure that's $19 for the first unit and then $14 for the next unit until you get to like 4 or 5 units, and then it goes down cheaper and cheaper per month. Yeah.
In terms of furnishings, are you guys IKEA level? Is it a higher grade than that? Is it, hey, let's get free stuff, Facebook Marketplace? What sort of budget do you have for these furnishings?
There's been a mix of everything. I joined a local like buy nothing group, and I actually got a lot of stuff from there. I actually got an entertainment center and then 2 shelves. They were really nice.
Really nice.
And I've gotten some coffee makers and stuff like that from there. It can be a whole thing, but a little mix of everything. A lot of the big stuff like furniture, the couches, coffee tables, the entertainment centers and stuff like that. We do Facebook Marketplace just because you can get really nice stuff for a good deal. And then the other stuff, sheets, decorations, cookware, flatware, dinnerware, that is mostly all bought new. And so, we'll utilize Amazon, Target, Walmart.
Yeah. Not mostly all bought new. All the sheets are new. Don't listen to that.
All right. So I really want to lean into this. James and Emily are living a jet-setting lifestyle, no day jobs, and with 10 properties, all under $100,000, acquired over a span of 5 years. Furnishings are not high-end. Software is not expensive. Time management is less than 2 hours a week. You can change your life through real estate just like them. This is one of many ways that real estate can change your life. But listen, we all know every investment has risk. Every situation, especially a business that's a people business, can be a crapshoot. Bad things can happen, but also what bad things can happen at your day job, right? You can have a bad day at your day job. That's also a people business, going into the office each day. Or there's a risk in that you lose your day job. You might as well have an extra income stream. But I really think it's important to talk about the worst things that can happen, especially with this lifestyle. So I dug in and asked James and Emily, what is the most terrible event they've had while they've been abroad and a tenant or what they call guests has possibly done in their Airbnb?
So we were actually in Portugal, I think, or maybe in France at the time. Where we were in Crete.
I don't know, either way.
I don't. We might have two different stories that we're thinking of, but either way, we were overseas, and this actually changed the way that we like accept guests or not, because we typically like at the beginning we were just accepting anybody that would book it, and now we don't accept local guests. So if you live in Huntsville, and there have been a couple of exceptions, like someone's building a house or something like that, right? But we had a person book our place for Halloween, and she booked it like no problem, and then we come to clean and there's like it's like she had a seance or something, right? There's wax literally all over the floor in every room. There's wax in the kitchen, there's wax in the living room, there's wax in the bedroom, there's wax in the bathroom, and it's like in the grooves of the LVP flooring. And so like it's not, you can't just vacuum it up, you have to like get down there and scrape it. And so that was a nightmare. And there was blood in the bathroom, and then a roach. So she had some weed in the shower, and marijuana is not legal in Alabama. And so that was our worst guest. And our place wasn't like trashed or anything. I mean, it was dirty and it needed to be cleaned up. But like knock on wood, that's been our worst guest.
So what happens in that situation? Like, what's the protocol with Airbnb?
So we made sure to document everything, take pictures of everything, and do an estimate of how much. So like there were actually stains in the bathtub too, and we had just refinished the bathtub. And so we reached out to some contractors to see how much it would be to either clean it or refinish it So we wrote up, an estimate of how much it would be to, the extra cleaning, the cleaning of the blood, the cleaning, the refinishing. And we reached out to Airbnb support and charged her for that. And then we had to do a whole back and forth with her and Airbnb support.
But they ended up covering it. So
Airbnb paid for all the
Airbnb
repairs.
paid for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I would imagine that guest maybe kicked off the system as well.
I think so. Yeah. Essentially, once they deny and say, like, because the other part of it was the person actually admitted to it, right? Like, so that's the hardest part is like, was this there before? Like, clearly not,
Right.
But this person actually admitted to it because we said, hey, what are the stains in the bathtub? Because we're just trying to figure out what cleaning product can we use to make this go away. And so she tells us, like, it should go away with this, like all this kind of stuff. So she's admitted, essentially that it's her fault. So that's the biggest problem with dealing with guests is like if they just deny, deny, deny. But Airbnb actually comes and says like, okay, well, you get X amount of insurance policy, and they've changed like their whole care package and stuff like that. And so it's a lot easier now to deal with.
I guess at the end of the day, was it a successful seance?
I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. Like we didn't find a Ouija board or anything. Like I don't know. There's no demons here that I know of. So.
Airbnb seems to be a willing partner in these tricky and difficult situations to help protect the host because the host of Airbnb is the lifeblood of the business. Without hosts, they're not going to make money. So yes, there will be issues, but think about it. Does cleaning up after a wax-filled seance, maybe over a weekend, better than having a 40-hour-a-week day job? I think most people would answer yes to that. So if you're sold and you want to learn more, what can you do?
So we actually have a Airbnb course that we've just released, and it teaches people how we do exactly what we do. So again, it goes through the entire flow chart. It goes through even furnishing the space. It goes through. It doesn't necessarily go through finding the space. So this is more for people that have a property like us that were maybe a long-term renter and they've decided to turn it into a short-term rental, or someone that's looking to move out of their own house and turn it into a rental. We actually have someone that's a student that is renting out their personal residence. So they're in a city that has a couple of festivals and a couple of events per year. And so they're putting all their things in a closet, essentially locking that and then leaving so that they can get paid, $1,000, $2,000 a night for their space. And they can just go and travel and enjoy that and let that pay for their mortgage for that, by renting it for a weekend a month. So there's a lot of flexibility with it. It is a video course. There's videos and then there are lessons that go along with that, so you can read along. And so what's included in the course is we have 10 different templates, like a furnishing checklist, a cleaning checklist, a quarterly cleaning checklist, a quarterly maintenance checklist. We have all the tracking for spreadsheets. We've got some templates for guest messaging. And then we actually go through and show you like, okay, this is what you should be doing. You should be picking an avatar. You should have someone in mind in the end to book your space. And this is how you target that person. And then this is how you can furnish the space. These are the places that we look for the furnishings. We don't really get into how much you should spend on XYZ because that's such an array. A budget friendly place is going to spend, $1,000 a room, while a high end place is going to spend over $1,000 on a couch. So there are a lot of different things there. So it's some of it's blanket advice, especially on that part of it. But the management part of it, we really go like nitty gritty. These are the messages we send. This is how we find cleaners. This is how we find local handymen. This is how we schedule those people. And so we go through all of that process. Everything that we do, we have on there. And we've covered all our bases and teach you how to do everything remotely as well. And that's actually our whole goal is we don't want to be beholden to the property, right? We don't want to have to run over there every time a guest needs something. You have to be flexible and you have to have things in mind to keep you from having to do that. Because if you're 12 hours away, like we are most of the time, you're not going to run over there.
Indeed. The point is to have time in your life and not leave one job to give yourself another job. So Emily and James have mastered this. I've watched their course and watched the videos. It's very in-depth. It's everything you need. I give them the feedback as such that this is everything you're set up to be successful. And they asked me if they could do a favor to all the real estate maxis listening today.
We're going to do something special for your listeners. And so they can go to rethinktheratrace.com/maxi, MAXI. The price is going to be $399.
There you go, guys. If you go to rethinktheratrace.com/maxi, you'll get a $399 course with a few bonus materials for Real Estate Maximalist listeners only. Emily and James, thanks so much for being on the show today. You provided some excellent knowledge of your successes, and I know my audience will appreciate it. And thank you for giving them some bonus material by using the /Maxi URL. Before we depart, I want to put a quick request out to you listeners. I'm very active on Twitter at Real Estate Maxi. I'm also very active on the Real Estate Maximalist Facebook group. I will answer all your questions there, but I want more than just your questions. I want your feedback. What is this show missing? What does this show need? The good, the bad, the ugly. I want to make this the best show for you, but I need to hear from you what it's lacking or what I need to improve on or what would make this the most powerful real estate show that you listen to each week. And I want you to know I'm the type of person that actually craves bad feedback more than good feedback. My feelings will not be hurt. My ultimate goal is to create the best podcast for you, but without your feedback, it's hard for me to guess, right? I'm throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So please DM me on Twitter, reach out in the Facebook group. I will happily take your negative feedback as well as your good feedback. I'm not going to lie. Your feedback is going to make this show better. So thank you for those leaving the reviews online as well. Those reviews are helping. And that's the medium of a podcast, right? I'm speaking out to a vacuum, but I really want to hear your feedback coming back to me. Thanks all for tuning in to Real Estate Maximalist. I'm Alan Corey, and we'll talk more real estate next week. Thanks for tuning in.